Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson-Miller. Now, a couple of weeks ago, a company made news, Caledonia Outdoor, with news that a memo from the company to employees had said all employees should get vaccinated within 14 days or resign. Well, the company later withdrew that, but it did ignite a debate that has been slowly building. And in fact, that is becoming more and more topical, not just in Jamaica, but a number of other countries. Should schools, colleges, workplaces mandate employees and students to take the COVID-19 vaccine? Can they do so by law? Now, we've seen people protesting recently in Grenada, for instance. We heard that students at St. George's University were protesting against the university's decision to mandate that all staff and students must be vaccinated for the new school term. In the United States, about 80 colleges have so far decided to insist on vaccination for students and staff, and a fiery debate is now ensuing in that country. So what's our situation here? A little later on, we're going to be hearing from lawyers as well as the Ministry of Labour in this segment of the program to give us their views. We have Helene Davis-White, who is the president of the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, David Wan with us from the Jamaica Employers Federation, and the registrar of the University of the West Indies Mona campus, Dr. Donovan Stanbury. Thank you all so much. It's good to have you on.
A couple of weeks ago.
To all the LAC.
Okay, let me start with you, if I could, Mr. Wan, because I'm hearing that some employers are starting to get very concerned about this, that employers are incurring a lot of costs in dealing with the impact of COVID-19 and wanting people to be vaccinated. Give me a little bit of feedback in terms of what your colleagues are saying. Hearing me, David Wan?
Hello?
Okay, hearing me now?
Very low.
Okay, we'll see what we can do about that. But I'm asking you to give us some feedback in terms of what people in your organization are saying about their concerns about why are employers wanting to see their employees vaccinated?
Well, why they want to see them vaccinated? I think that's a very simple answer, Dion. Because they want to maintain a healthy and safe workplace for the employees and the customer.
Okay, so let's take it one step further now when we come to people thinking about mandating the vaccine.
All right. I must state before we get into any detail, this is an unprecedented situation. It is still unfolding. There are thoughts and views on both sides of this coin. We have researched this matter in two of the territories we look to mostly for precedents, in the UK and the US. And what I would like to do is just share with you a little about what's been happening in those jurisdictions. And again, this thing is still unfolding. It's not crystal clear how it's going to pan out in Jamaica. So, if I can proceed very quickly, what's happening in the US, just in highlight, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has issued guidance to employers that says employers may encourage or possibly require COVID-19 vaccines, but policies, and this is the caveat, must comply with Americans with Disabilities Act and the Civil Rights Act. So an employer may require COVID-19 vaccination of employees, but they need to be careful in doing that because they could run afoul of the Employees with Disabilities Act or the Civil Rights Act, which speaks to things like freedom of religion. So that's the basic guidance. They may require it for workers. It's America, and also remember there's an employment at will framework there where the labor laws are not as onerous in many cases as it is here in Jamaica. So the employee, what they must do if someone has a disability and they have this required COVID-19 vaccination policy at work, they must do all they can once they discover one of the employees is disabled, who's impacted by this decision not to take the vaccine because of valid reasons of relating to their disability. They must try to make some accommodation, such as putting the person on remote work or putting them in a position that is not interacting with customers or too many employees. So after exhausting all that, they may come to the conclusion that they may have to part company with the employee. And as far as religious beliefs, I believe there's one major one that says we don't do vaccines. That's the Christian Scientists. They should follow the same protocol, try to make an accommodation, and also, do the best you can for these employees. But at the end of the day, if you have done and it's not onerous, you must try to comply and keep them on the job. So that's the US in summary. In the UK, just moving very quickly, guidance by some eminent lawyers is that it's very much a case-by-case situation. For existing employees, if an employer can prove an unvaccinated person is a health risk to others, for example, a beauty salon and a nursing home, they generally have a valid defense against a discrimination suit if they terminate employees who have not been vaccinated. As far as new hires, employers may exclude new hires based on the vaccine status. However, need to be careful to consider discrimination action risk due to things like pre-existing disability or pregnancy, for example. So that's an overview of the guidance being given in the US and the UK to employers. Now, we have something here called the Persons with Disabilities Act. So I'm predicting that we could possibly go down the same route when it comes to mandatory vaccine, but I'm speculating. It is still unfolding. It's not clear where it's going. And that's what I would say, Dion, as a summary.
Okay. Let me just 2 quick points before we go to the others. Just a reminder that the Disabilities Act in Jamaica is not yet in force. We don't know when it's going to be in force, if indeed it would apply. But also just to make the point as well, and thank you so much for the summary. That is useful. But just always to make the point that the UK in particular, we have to be very careful how we equate precedents, because they do not have a written constitution. Their constitution is not supreme, being the most important issue there, unlike our situation here in Jamaica. So especially when it comes to issues involving rights, it's really not on all fours. But having said that, Dr. Stanbury, let me bring you here in at this point. The last time we spoke about this on radio, you said it was likely. We were speaking, I think, about medical science students, and you were saying it was likely that vaccinations would be required for them come September. Can you give us anything further on that, as well as with the general staff and student population? Any decisions made?
Thank you very much, Dion. We at UWI Mona have not yet made any decision in relation to mandatory vaccination. However, our medical students who have been out there doing their clinical rotations, we have in fact offered them the vaccine without any mandatory requirement. And happily, the dean reported to me this evening that over 96% of them or so, in fact, took the vaccine. It is also instructive that in the recent blitz that we had on our campus, conducted by the Mona Aging and Wellness Center, over 2,000 people between the ages of 18 and 29, in fact, took the vaccine, and a great many of them were, in fact, our students. The issue of requiring people to take vaccination for us is common sense. Of course, it is not the intention of the university to infringe anybody's religious belief or our rights. And of course, we do have to respect when medical personnel indicate that persons ought not to take the vaccine because of some, pre-existing condition. But for our students going out there in the clinicals, our medical students, both the doctors, the nurses, the physiotherapists, etc., it just makes practical sense, frankly, to protect them and to protect the patients with whom they will interact. I'm told, for instance, that long before COVID, we were asking them to show proof of vaccination against chicken pox, for instance, and people complied without any issues. I think that the enormity of the COVID crisis, I mean, it's the first pandemic many of us have ever lived through, and the abundance of conspiracy theories and so on have in fact complicated this issue because people have been taking vaccine in our programs as a requirement without making it, of course, legally mandatory, without any issues.
Okay, I'm nearly at break, but let me come to you for a quick comment to start us off. Helene Davis-White, what's your view on this as a trade unionist?
Well, the trade union movement in Jamaica does not support mandatory vaccinations at this point in time, and we make the case clear at this point in time. We recognize that as we speak, the vaccines have actually been released and are being used under an emergency authorization. So that tells you that we may not know enough about the vaccine, so that there is a risk, and I think there's a risk with almost any medication. But at this point in time, based on the information that we're getting from a number of our members, without having more information as to the risks associated with taking the vaccine, we would not support mandatory vaccination at this time.
All right, hold that thought for me. I'm going to pick up when we come back. We're talking vaccination, COVID vaccination to be specific. Should schools, institutions, colleges, workplaces mandate COVID-19 vaccination, and can they legally and constitutionally? Remember, our hashtag is TVJ, all angles. We're back in a moment.